Talk to us about I Live to Tell the Story.
Well, so my first book was called, or is, State of Emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, in the times that we live,
Yeah.
it's actually been, people wanting it again. So I've been taking them out on the road with me with my second book, right? Because people are like, what about that other thing too?
Right.
How do we fight?
Right.
But that book was inspired by a viral speech that I gave in Minneapolis when George Floyd was murdered. And so that book is really about my theory of change for America.
Okay.
And it really does. I get into allyship versus being an accomplice, and I really talk to my white sister and others. And so that's kind of where I was at that time when I first wrote that book. It was after the summer of 2020.
Right.
And that was my energy. And this book is different because it's really a theory of change for myself. It is a book that shows you from childhood to where you see me today, many of the challenges that I've faced. And I've had to, one thing I will say that the book forced me to do is to not sit and say everybody else did it, that it's this one's fault, or
there's some agency
who hurt my feelings. And that's true, those things did happen, but it also gives a real account of the decisions that I made that helped me, that put me in places, spaces, and things and people and men particularly that I should not have been dealing with. And my parents have been trying to tell me.
They always do.
It's not like I didn't know. They said, that girl, not a good friend. That guy, don't do it. And I didn't listen. And a lot of things happen as a result of, not listening to the wisdom of my parents, and particularly my mother, and which, everybody asks me, what's one takeaway from I Live to Tell a Story? And I say, your mother knows everything.
Come on.
Everything.
Come on. I didn't realize that till I was about 22, 23 years old. I was like, you really do know everything.
Even if she didn't know exactly what was happening, she was always in the ballpark. And so she would say, I told you about messing with that boy. And I would say, well, I'm not even seeing him today. But that's not the point.
Right.
The point was all of them, I didn't need to be
It was the same character played by different actors.
I loved them.
Yes.
The same kind of guy. And so she knew everything. And, sexual assault became a thing because she told me certain people, she didn't like the way they looked.
Yeah.
She didn't trust them. She didn't want me around them. And I ran, flops, gone, had to get there. Like, as soon as she said, and my mother used to tell me, if I tell you to do one thing, you do the opposite. So I'm going to start telling you, just go, jump off of a bridge. And I think that'll
so
make
you'll
you
stay firmly on the ground.
And so in the book, my mom is one of the characters that you get a lot of laughs from because she says the things. She holds no punches whatsoever. And, as I got older, I still didn't listen to some things. And she would go, okay.
Yeah.
And then I'd be back like, oh, Mom. So that's a big part of it. My son, he's 25 now. He has my 2-year-old granddaughter.
Oh my goodness.
And I get a chance to do.
Now, when y'all see the video, y'all gonna feel a sense of the shock that I feel because I technically knew, but like when you look at somebody who looks like she could be 14, 15, maybe 18 on a good day, say that she's got a 2-year-old daughter, it can shock the system.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I work at it every day. But my granddaughter has given me a second chance at least co-parenting. And, she has amazing parents. Let me tell you, these 25-year-old parents, they're different from when we was 25. I mean, and it's not just me. I have friends who have children my age, who also have children, and just to watch the way that they take care of their kids, they're way more protective. They're on top of it. My son, he's like always with his daughter, just a very loving dad. Her mom, you can't, I'm like, give that girl that same Tylenol that we had, when we were kids. And she's like, oh no, I looked it up on this app that she scans everything my granddaughter eats. I don't even know. It looks like paper. I'm like, give her the chips. And she's like, no, we don't do that around here. Calories and ADHD issues and cancer. I mean, she's got the whole thing. That's the type of parents they are. They're amazing. But I do still let them know that I really hold the final say about everything as it relates to my granddaughter.
Because we co-parenting in this thing.
Well, it's myself and the maternal grandmother.
Okay.
So we're together.
Yeah.
And then we go against them too.
I love it. Y'all got to team up. You got to organize against the parents.
We have to, but they're so good. We don't really have to get into much because they're on top of things. But the other thing is that they allow kids to be a lot more free.
They do.
Then we had to have Fort Knox. My granddaughter has not had a high chair since she was about 6 months.
She's gonna learn that core stabilization and learn how to sit up properly.
She sits
in
at
the
table.
Yeah.
So they do things different, which makes you a little nervous. But she just does her life. She's living, and it's all good. So with that being said, in the book, I talk about why this moment is so important for me, because with my son, I was working on my career. I didn't have a college education. I didn't have a high school diploma, by the way. I had my child. I got pregnant at 17. I had him at 18. And then his father was murdered at 20. So I didn't have time to slow down and get the things that I should have been working on at the appropriate times. Yeah. But I was running the street. We were outside, as they say now. I was way outside. And I had to, when my son was born, and I kind of looked at him and was like, oh, SHIT, this is a real human who has real needs. Yes. And now his dad is dead, which means he could end up the same way if I don't get my SHIT together. And so I had that realization and was like, okay, it's time. But when I said it was time to go back to school, that means that I'm studying all day, because I went to college in New Rochelle, which gave me the ability to get a GED and my college credits at the same time. Because I was way advanced, beyond just getting a high school diploma. I was already in a career by the time I decided to settle down.
So you were almost taking some steps back to come back around.
Just so I could get the paperwork. But, I never had an issue in class. I was always a great writer. I was kind of, and not self-taught, because the community taught me. I mean, again, I told you somebody put this book in my hand as a young girl reading autobiography of Malcolm X and all the things, you name it. As a young girl, Coldest Winter Ever was my favorite book. Oh, man.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that I want to circle back to. And that was this notion of the balance between recognizing that, yes, other people might have done X, Y, Z, but there was some agency and some choices that you made that contributed to this thing. Absolutely. Can you help us sit in that seat for a minute? Because I think a lot of times it's easy for us to say, I can clearly identify so-and-so, it's this your fault. Oh, right. So-and-so, you did this thing. And I wouldn't be in these circumstances were it not for this, that, or the other thing. But there is often in that sort of mindset an absence of, or an abdication of the responsibility and the role that our personal decision making may have made in taking whatever they did do. We're not taking away from them that they did a thing, but there is this moment where we can sometimes abdicate the role that we played in the choices that we made contributing to that. How do you tease that out in the book, and what should we take from your experience with that balance?
Just sticking with the theme of my son's father. His name is Jason. Let's give him life in this room. And just sticking with that, my parents were like, don't do it. It's not a good idea. Neither one, you're not even old enough to be in this super serious relationship this is your husband. Yeah. Every day y'all fighting, screaming, hollering. You can't move, sleep, eat, do anything without him. Go to school, get your education, focus, and then you can, if you guys are still together, cool. But they were like, we like Jason, not a good idea right now. He was a little older than me. He didn't have his stuff together either. Not a good idea. Oh no, not me.
Not Tamika D. Mallory.
Me. No. I didn't listen. I love him. He's my soulmate.
Of course.
And when I got pregnant, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have this baby. And while again, it was a decision that, look at my son, he's my bestie. That's my guy. But if I was able to have him a little bit later in life, I think it would have done both of us some justice. You know, my son, he suffered a lot because I was hardly ever home. You know, and when I say hardly ever home, you know, even he said to me the other day, like, okay, Ma, don't do too much on this tour. You was here. Like, you were here.
Don't downplay what you did do.
No, he was trying to say that I'm making it like I was never there. And he's like, you was home. Like, relax.
Yeah.
But even when I was home, I was on the phone. I was on the computer.
Not as
I was
present.
studying.
Yeah.
He's talking to me. I'm like, you know, I was never all the way like focused on just mommy and me, you know. And it's unfortunate when the child's father is deceased or the child's mother is deceased, and therefore there's only one parent that is responsible for this whole thing. Anybody else that I've been with through the years, and they have been actually, I have met some amazing guys who have been a boyfriend or a good friend, and they have all stepped in to support him, but it's not the same thing as having your actual dad. And my parents saw the pattern. They knew, and I didn't listen. Now, I could be mad because Jason, he went out in the streets and got himself in a situation that he shouldn't have been in, because he should have been more at home focused on helping to raise my son. But he was running the streets and doing his thing. And I could sit here, like you said, and go, Jay, I can't believe you left me with this baby. I could say, oh, society took him because gun violence is a thing, and all those things would be true. He dealt with poverty. He dealt with two parents who had serious drug issues, amazing people, but the system believed to send them to jail was the right way to help them get off of the drugs, and it never worked. And so he was dealing with mental health issues and, you know, abandonment and all of that from his parents. So we can sit here all day and do a whole study on Black America and how we become single mothers because the system does not honor and respect and take care of Black men. I could do that. But my mama has said, don't go out there getting pregnant or, you know, getting yourself all hooked up. Focus on what you need to do and meet up with Jason at a later time.
See, one of the reasons I find this to be fascinating is because all of us have this capacity to take big picture a view of the conditions that we find ourselves in. And here we believe a lot in personal responsibility. We have a whole segment of the show at the very beginning, Moment of Gratitude, where we are going to intentionally curate some joy, gratitude, and appreciation, so we are not trapped by fear, loneliness, and depression, because we got work to do, both in the world of justice and in our internal space of making, I also really tap into a lot of Buddhist principles. We have the obligation to make good causes so that we can have good effects. When I was a Black church girl, so I know that what you put out is what you gonna get back.
That's right.
And so there is this interplay between personal responsibility and systemic oppression that we often sort of default to the systemic oppression. And I find that it's important for us to be acknowledging the fact that, that exists. And that's sort of the canvas. That's the background against which you are painting your particular story. But your particular story also includes a mama who told you don't do that.
Exactly. Yeah, we have to take that responsibility. And I think understanding that systemic oppression exists should make us even more mindful of the decisions that we make.